if we don't start taking care of our planet, we are really going to be in trouble here shortly. Hey, I'm Dr. Ruth Roberts, the original holistic pet health coach and holistic veterinarian. And with me today is Mr. Rob Ryan, the founder of Gussie'sGut.com. And for those of you that do not know Rob and what he is about, Rob co-founded Gussie's Gut with his friend and the father of biologically appropriate raw feeding, Dr. Ian Billinghurst. And he's also founded DIYPetHealth.com and a whole bunch of other cool stuff. But his goal is to help educate and certify more people on species appropriate raw food diets. Rob is committed to the education on the microbiome of our animals and the creation of the highest quality products out there. Rob, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us today. And I'm really delighted to have you on. You've got one of the most unusual products on the market, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But what got you started down this path of microbiome health?
First, Dr. Ruth, thank you for having me. You've got quite the group, and it's a pleasure to be with everyone. So, what got me, I think probably like most people, their dogs got them into this, into the business. Everyone I meet, whether it's somebody who started a pet store, pet supplement company, pet food company, it's the love of their dogs. And they believed that a solution existed. If they took action, they could create the solution they were looking for because they weren't finding it in the marketplace. So I started fermenting my dog's own foods after he had a really serious health injury from getting in the trash. And to make a very long story, 7 week scary, he wasn't eating, wasn't drinking at the end. Story short, he got through that. It passed through the other end, what he had ate, which was a piece of plastic, and it left this gut injury. So it left a hole in him. And I decided, okay, I'm going to throw, just like I do with everything, how can I throw the kitchen sink at this? So I was giving him probiotics, and I was doing a lot of other really good supportive things, including raw food. But it was important that I do more. And I thought in my research, I saw that there was this unmet need in gut nutrition for dogs. And so I just did it myself in my kitchen. And then I decided from there to reach out to Dr. Billinghurst. And we said, hey, this is something everybody should have available. They can do it themselves. You can certainly ferment yourself. But for those who don't or can't, if they're in small apartments or they just don't have the time, we're here for them.
And that's totally amazing. And I think what's really interesting, the more we start to understand the microbiome, I think the more we start to see where, yeah, there's probiotics can be helpful, but if we've got nothing to feed these guys, we really aren't going to be able to really do a good job because we can put the probiotics in there, but if they've got nothing to eat and nothing to help stabilize the bugs and the correct structure, it really is a big problem. So I'm so happy that you developed this program. One of the interesting studies I was reading the other day is that pre-fire, they're believing now that fermented foods is part of what helped the brain size grow in humans, or
Yep.
actually Neanderthals, because they had fire before we came along. So it's just amazing that breakdown through fermentation. And I think the other thing too is that what's now starting to be talked about is um, postbiotic products, and of course there's going to be tons of those in fermented products. So can you
Yep.
talk a little bit about why? So you started doing it and seeing it worked, but then where did that take you in terms of understanding the why?
Yeah. So a couple of quick thoughts, Neanderthals and all of the study you mentioned. So humans, we at a necessity, we created fermentation. We found and developed fermentation to keep food safe. And dogs, you have to remember, are scavengers by nature. So for them, fermentation could be dead, dying, rotting, decaying foods, and they love them. As Dr. Billinghurst says, they eat them with relish. And this includes poop. And I'm sure all of your coaches out there know that dogs are caprophagic by nature. So They're a wise creature in that they understand that sometimes what ends up out of the other end of an animal can be more nutritious than what came in the front end in their mouth. And so we think of fermented foods as being both. We think of them as this great human, they've got this human aspect of preservation, and it brings out nutrients and flavor. And most of what we eat, by the way, a lot of people don't realize it's fermented is everything. It's coffee, butter, all the, of course, the usual things, the yogurts and cottage cheese and all that. But it's in a lot of things, chocolate. So
Right.
back to dogs. Yeah. So back to dogs, decided, okay, we're going to make a poop substitute. We're going to make a thing that addresses this little segment of dog food. Because what we believe is real food, just like you do, always. Real nutrition, good quality whole food, always. And so on top of that, you then have things like you can add regular vegetables in their raw form, but with fermented, they're broken down. And we like to say they're almost like they're pre-digested. So if you could just by way of example, you could take a raw and a fermented blend of vegetables, same blend. One's raw, one's fermented. If in the raw, let's just for argument's sake say we could get 5% of the nutrients out of that raw blend. Fermented, we know we can get more. Now, it depends on the blend, it depends on how long it's fermented, depends on how it's fermented, all of that crazy stuff. But let's just say if you could get double, 10% instead of 5, wouldn't that be worth it? Wouldn't that be interesting? And we believe that most fermented you can get even more than that out of its raw form. So prior to creating Gussie's Gut and the formula that became Gussie's Gut, that's all I was doing. I was throwing raw vegetables in a Vitamix. That slurry was in my dog's raw pet food every day for 23 years. And 23 years ago is when I met Dr. Billinghurst. I went straight to him after a referral from Marty Goldstein, who was my vet, and Bob Goldstein. And I learned right from the master on raw food. So I've adapted and upped my game a little bit each time. And so here we are.
That's amazing. And what an eloquent description. And I think that's good. I think many raw feeders are they're grinding the vegetables very finely, but still I think maximal absorption is somewhere in the 5 to 10% category. And that's been part of my argument for cooking vegetables. But this is a great way to get probably as much nutrient out of the vegetables without cooking them. So brilliant idea. And when you started doing this with your own dogs, what did you see? You went straight to raw. You saw some big improvements there. And but when you started adding in these fermented vegetables, what were the things you started seeing?
Yeah. The biggest thing I saw was his whole energy. And your folks will understand this, but you can't say this in just and commercial application because people will go, what does that even mean? But I saw an incredible improvement in his joie de vivre. I am a big measurer and a big proponent of everybody knows their dogs like the back of their hand, and everybody knows when their dogs light up. And so you can see the light. But I also saw the poop, and that was miraculous. The poop was really concerning in weird colors. I have an email and a phone relationship with my vet, luckily. So every day after this had happened, I was being one of these crazy pet parents that we hear about. I was that guy. And just going, hey, why am I like, does this look? And I was shooting pictures and sending it to him in email. And I was like, what does this mean? I had never seen that before. And I had my dogs before him for about 17 years as an adult. I had my own dogs for 17 years before Gus. So I'd had a lot of history I'd seen a lot of poop. But this was horribly unusual. And the gas was very concerning and unusual. You're like, that is next level, just alarming. And that went away. So it took for me doing his own fermented. It took really about 4 weeks. So it wasn't overnight. It did take about 4 weeks. And then I started seeing this really nice integrity of his poop. And then I saw a lot of really great other benefits with the gas and all that other stuff.
That's just crazy that hopefully I'm still going. Maybe Rob jumped off and he will come back on.
I'm
There you
here.
are.
I'm here.
I think you're a victim of lousy hotel internet. Right. But what Rob is saying is really amazing because if it took 4 weeks to take this dog from disastrous poop to really normal poop, that is astonishing because so many of these guys, once they've had such a severe injury, Rob was speaking of, they really never get back to normal. So that is really good stuff. And once that sort of normal poop came back, was he on the level and everything was beautiful after that?
Yeah, so he's I've done a lot of testing on him and he's in bulletproof shape. He's in incredible shape. He was also it's important to say he was also really fit and healthy before this. So I like to say one of the reasons why you have a resilient, healthy, powerful dog in really good health is something could happen and they're going to cash in on a little bit or sometimes all of that health. And so he was able, I think, to, and that's what my vet thinks, and other vets that I've talked to. He was able to spring back better. Had he been a sick or ill or over medicated or blah 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 dog, it would have been more difficult. And yeah, I think for what we tell people, Dr. Ruth, is that our fermented superfoods, they're not magic and they're not pharmaceuticals. What they are is this incredible way to get something unique and get hard to get nutrients, because what's in our formulas are usually very hard to get. Most people aren't even giving them in the raw form. And the fact that they're fermented, it gives them that extra advantage. And people email us all the time. Is this going to help with my itching dog? Is this going to help with my yeast dog? Is this going to, we always say, look, we don't want you to think of Gussie's gut as being a therapeutic or a treatment. What we want you to think of Gussie's gut as being very much like a food. It is a food-based supplement, but you're supplementing a really good diet, like your crock pot diet or raw food diet or, another whole food great
Something
diet.
whole food diet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right on. And that's it. It's really what you're going for is making sure that the foundation is really strong so that anything else that happens after that is going to be all good stuff downstream from the gut. And it's interesting too, when I started studying leaky gut syndrome back in 2005, the gospel was that the gut gets insulted and then everything just goes to hell in a handbasket. The tight junctions break down, the mucin layer breaks down, and stuff starts getting absorbed into the body that shouldn't. But some of the research that's coming out is saying that maybe it's actually the other way. You have some insult to an organ. And in this case, for your dog, it was directly to the gut. But maybe it's the kidney was insulted or the heart was insulted or something like this. And then the gut becomes leaky because the body is off kilter. And for instance, in humans, if you get a concussion, that can induce leaky gut syndrome and vice versa. So it's so interesting what we're figuring out. And I think we're just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
And so that's great that you found somebody to work with that's holistic. And I think this is one of the things, if you have good nutrition lined up, whether that's raw, whether that's cooked, makes the most sense for your dog, then adding this as a topper, I think, would be a reasonable thing to do to make sure that you're getting both the prebiotic, probiotic, and postbiotic fibers introduced so that the whole structure of the microbiome is really supported. And that's great. Maggie's one of our coaches, but that's awesome. And that's true because of the way the things are set up. These are great for energetically cool dogs because it will start to improve the heat in terms of traditional Chinese veterinary medicine. So that's super cool stuff. So when you When people start using these fermented products, what are they starting to see within, say, a couple of weeks of beginning on them?
Yeah, and as you were going through and you said postbiotics again, I realized I did not answer your question before about prebiotics and postbiotics, so we can come back to that. And I have a lot more to say about where we've come in microbiome research, and we can, if we have time, we can go into that too.
That'd be awesome.
So if you really pay attention to our company, we are adamant about under promising and over delivering. And so, Dr. Ruth, as a veterinarian with the experience you have, I would put you on the upper echelon of all veterinarians. And I'm going to guess, and I haven't asked you this before, you would say that most good supplements, in quotation marks, probably work about 30% of the time great for a dog, 30% meh, okay, pretty good, and 30% don't work at all. Would you say that's a fair 30-30-30-ish?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's what I hear from every great veterinarian. And we abide by that. We believe that this isn't the next coming of some supplement. We're very humble about what we are, which is we take incredible effort to find the most immaculate, clean, beautiful sources of our ingredients. We work with really great partners, and we believe in, if you start with a really high quality of ingredient and then high quality of production, we make everything by hand down to the salt, which we use Redmond's real salt only. We believe you'll have a good chance to make that 30% really strong. We don't know everything about the animals that come to us. We don't know what lives they've lived in the past. We don't even know down to the parents they had and their vaccine history and their medication history, and they certainly don't know their diet. And we get a lot of rescues. So those folks don't know either. So we just zip it up. We don't say anything about what we can do. We let the product take hold and do what it does, and let the pet owners, they can observe what's happening. But what we end up finding is that we really don't shine in the category of puppies are always like they're cashing in on their puppyhood and all their
If
hormone. Yeah. Yeah.
they're
So
already vibrant.
yeah, they're vibrant. But if you want to support your puppies, yay, great. Where we really shine is the problem dogs that, they've been neglected in the past, in their past lives with other people, or they've lived on the streets. We have dogs like that, and they go into these beautiful homes and people are cooking their meals, and they're they're getting our product after these changes have been made, and they want an increased level of support and resilience, and we like to say healthy aging instead of anti-aging, healthy aging support, which we believe fermented foods do for people and really all mammals, really most mammals that can eat fermented foods. So what we're seeing is everything from that increased joie de vivre to increased eye quality, tongue, gums, skin, wants to go on 3 walks instead of 1 walk, all these different things. And I'm not the guy to ask. I see every single customer support ticket pretty much that comes. I review them every week, and I see a lot of great stories, but these are anecdotal. And so and I also feel like this isn't something we promote. We let reviews shine. If people want to look at our reviews and they want to read the stories, great. We can't and don't want to promise that we're going to do something, because your dog may be in the other 30 percentile where it's okay, but or it's not working at all.
Right on. And I think a lot of what happens with that is that the gut simply can't absorb the nutrient. Like the mechanism to absorb some of those nutrients aren't there, and or it's not the right choice for that pet. That was one of the really frustrating things for me when I was doing one-to-one consultations and now for the coaches is people will come to them with their dog on 27 no kidding supplements, and you don't know what's going on there. So I think that part of it is that people will buy these big kits that have 4 or 5 products in them, and you got no idea what's happening there. So I think
No.
it's really important to try things one by one and use as little as possible. And ultimately, I'm really fond of saying, you cannot outpill a bad diet. So if you're still feeding Beneful, that's the worst option out there, or one, well, down close to the bottom at any rate. And then you're giving the 16 supplements, you may see some improvement, but you're not going to truly get there because the underlying mechanism for health, which is microbiome health, is just not happening.
Yeah.
But cool. So, and you were talking earlier about pre, post, and let's dive back onto that. Pre, post, and
Cool.
yeah, pro.
So everybody is, for really a hard 10 years, we have all been educated through marketing. That's the important thing. Marketing about probiotics. So we went from the period before, which was bacteria bad, to, oh, there's these good bacteria and let's take them. The fact is that there are, what we're really working with, if you stop for just a minute and you consider, and let's just focus on dogs. I could get off on a tangent with people, but we don't need to do that. So for dogs, what we know currently, I like to preface by saying we might find out differently later. But as of today, you've got about 500 good microbes in dogs, and then 1,000 subspecies. That's a lot.
Right
If
on.
you look at the supplement, you're dealing with, up to 15 species that you can give your dog. Okay, interesting. Now, when you look at testing of all kinds, I don't care what test you put in front of me, the machines and the technology that's available can also only test for, I think, up to about 20 today. The best technology, about 20 it can test for. Okay, interesting. So, what is it we're really doing here? And I don't think we need a PhD to figure that part out. If I ask the question, what is it we're solving for? Are we solving for a species? We actually don't know enough about each species. We know that this species could be helpful, and this variety of the species could be really helpful in this one thing, and diarrhea and this and that. It's been studied and all that. But we actually don't know what I think what we think we have in the probiotic world is we have this magic set of numbers. We should have this much of this species. But the truth is, we don't have enough in our toolbox, and we do not know because everybody's different. And the same thing goes for our dogs. So even if we had in supplement form all 500 and 1,000 subspecies that you could take in a pill form, you could not actually apothecary together the right mixture for your dog. It doesn't exist because it
No,
depends. If I take your dog from California and I move it to where I am today in Austin, Texas, guess what? The biome's going to change. The microbiome will change. It will adapt to its surroundings. And so it's uber complicated, but don't get perplexed by their perplexing. It will only perplex you, is what my friend says. So just focus on good quality diet and standards. So we don't chase and we don't sell Gussie's Gut as a probiotic, even though lacto and bifido species are inherent in our fermentation process, and we love those. What we believe the value is, we focus on gut terrain health and supporting that terrain. And you talked about that earlier in the show. If we can do that through polyphenols, phytochemicals, certainly pre and postbiotics, we believe will offer another benefit to really great companies out there, like my friend Julie at Adored Beast, who runs an incredibly brilliant, beautiful company, and others out there. So I am not anti probiotic. Make no mistake. I just want everybody to understand we should go into it with clear and open eyes. And so when we get questions like, should I replace my current probiotic with Gussie's Gut? We get that almost every single day. It probably is our number. I should know this. It probably is our number one question. We actually recorded a video about it. It's so common. What we want to say first is, wait a second, why are you taking that probiotic? What's the reason? Is your vet telling you? Then keep doing it. But if you just think that's part of gut health, you may want to re-examine that, because what we think the goal is to gut health, it's diversity and terrain health. It's absolutely both those things.
Very eloquent answer. And I think that's absolutely it. And of the numbers you mentioned, 500 species and then say 1,000 subspecies, those are just the ones that we've identified. And there's probably 10x that number at minimum present. So we really don't know what we're doing.
No.
And I think the early products out there, like it's hilarious what I was saying in 2006, now the internists are saying, and that's to use a high potency multi species product. And I think that helps. But what I finally realized is that what is more important is to go after what I consider to be the scaffolding. So, what is going to actually provide benefit in creating the right structure so that the rest of the probiotic organisms that we don't even know who the heck they are can actually do their jobs and keep things healthy? And I totally get it. So, that's where I guess about 4 years ago, I switched to a sporulated probiotic, 4 species, and the whole goal of it is not to regrow the microbiome, but simply to provide a healthy, safe haven for the guys that we want to get growing in there.
Yeah.
But I think it's critical, and that's it. I think people throw their dogs on probiotics and they're on them forever. And I would say that you can titrate down to the lowest effective dose or off of it. Or if your dog is relatively healthy, but maybe there's a stressful event coming up, anesthesia, something of that nature, then have something on hand that will help protect the microbiome from insults. But again, it just depends on the dog. So
Yeah.
that's the other thing you have to honor. And if your veterinarian was using a specific type of probiotic for a specific reason, that's something that's important to follow through with too.
I think what we have unfortunately found ourselves is we've fallen into the pill for every ill, but probiotic for every ill thing. It's just very comfortable and simple. It's a system we all know. Now, take this thing for the chronic diarrhea or this or that, and let's be done with it. Unfortunately, it's not that simple. I shy away from telling people what, and we don't do that at our company. We're a broken record. Please find a great vet that you can consult with, and we refer out. I just sent somebody to your course on crockpot because they literally said, I started crockpotting and then I got away from it, and now I need to go back and I said, Dr. Ruth Roberts' course. But we prefer to tell people it's important to know why you're doing what you're doing and not just blindly doing it and wanting to be done with it and thinking that you are done with it. And I still haven't answered your prebiotic and postbiotic question. I'll do that really fast. Okay. There is like everything. Here's what I believe. I believe that I go from the bottom junk tier and I call it God tier. And it's not religion I'm talking about. It's just like the best, the God-like tier of things. And that's how I see everything. I look at like in the vegetable world, it'd be conventional, organic, biodynamic, regenerative, let's say. Okay. But in prebiotics, you've got your inulins and you've got your sugars at the bottom, junk. And then you've got your agaves and your inulins. It's okay. It's not ideal. And synthetic prebiotics. And then, did I say prebiotics or probiotics? I meant
Pre, you're still on
okay, good,
pre. You're
good,
doing it. You got it.
good. And then you've got like your other vegetables. It could be like beets, for example, are certainly classified as a prebiotic. But then you've got the really good, amazing, what I would call God tier, which is dandelion, asparagus, sunchoke, and then certain mushrooms. Like in the whole food plant world, you, we don't know of anything better yet. So I'll just put it that way. And then, of course,
Right
you have
on.
to look for the cleanest source. So our product has that tier. Our products have that tier in it. And those do heavy lifting when it comes to that whole terrain thing we just talked about. Now, postbiotics are the result and the payoff. I call it the gold, the payoff at the end of fermentation. And that's these metabolites, and they basically work as this super factory of energy and cleaning up detoxification. And they're really good they're good with pre and probiotics for sure. They're really good on their own, but they're also being made in a junk way by some really, really big companies that will remain nameless, but they're getting in on the gravy train, and they figured out ways to make them really cheaply. I would suggest you get your postbiotics from the really good God tier as well.
Right
Fermented.
on. And that makes total sense. Totally makes sense because and to be clear, so the postbiotics are the things that everybody's talking about right now because it's the new thing, right? But in fermented foods, that's actually, as you said, those are the things that have been doing the heavy lifting all
Yeah.
along. And I think it's so important because it can regulate so many systems in the detoxification system, improve gut function. We can see massive improvements in skin and itching wherever the inflammatory response is happening, whether that's ear infections, kidney disease, all of that. So I think they're critically important. One of the other things you might want to explain too is this idea of regenerative farming and what that means.
Okay.
Because
So,
that's a new one for a lot of folks, I think.
okay, sure. So this is, if you want to know, if you knew me really well, Rob's passion is regenerative farming. So I have been a big environmentalist for a very long time. I live in Colorado. I love clean air, oceans, streams, water, land. Call me crazy. That's what I love. And I believe in saving the world in substantive ways. So I don't think that we're going to change anything by just screwing in a light bulb. What I believe is we need to change our farming. So we need to move away from factory farming and even beyond organic, which is also, depending on where you are in the world, it's been a little hijacked. Um, so
A
now in
little
America,
greenwashed.
a little greenwashed, and regenerative is starting to go that way too. Now, biodynamic is a little different. We won't go into that. That's next level over organic, harder restrictions, bigger, closer to that God tier. Regenerative, I believe, is beyond that. And why it is, it's inherent in true non-greenwashed regenerative farming and ranching. So meat production and plant production. That means that animals, like nature intended, are tromping on the land, pushing in the microbes, pooping, all the poop gets pushed into the ground. So natural microbes are abundant. So if we didn't have any people in this area and we had just natural grazing, the bison were roaming like in the old days here in America, you would have 5% of microbes in the soil. The richness of the soil would be incredible. Most conventional farms, you can barely measure that. It's over tilled. It's the soil is turned over, exposed to the sunlight. All the microorganisms in the dirt are killed. They're exposed to sunlight and air. And so there's no richness and no vibrancy. If the soil is healthy, and in fact it has a healthy microbiome, then everything that comes out of it and from it, including the grass that the cows eat or the bison or whatever it may be, that is better for you. So it is also true that I read a statistic that if just 4% of our farms were regenerative farmed, we would draw 100% of our carbon from the atmosphere out of the air in about 20 to 25 years without changing a car on the road. Yeah, so
And
there's lots of really good opportunities there. And so that's why I love regenerative. Not to mention that regenerative farms it goes without saying, they're free range animals, beyond free range. They have actually ridiculously beautiful lives. And I was just telling you, Dr. Ruth, that we have a new treat that's come out. It's coming out technically tomorrow. So this is live. You guys are hearing
woohoo!
for anybody. It's regenerative focused. And so we're making an ancestral pork treat for dogs that is all from whiteoakpastures.com. a family run farm, 156 years. This is the preeminent regenerative farm in the world, a ranch, and down to Temple Grandin creating, for those of you who know about Temple Grandin, she's the doctor that focuses on humane animal treatment, and everything has been focused and thought of in that direction. So I've been on the ground, my feet have been on the ground with the animals, and it's an absolutely beautiful way to live in the world where that is happening versus pigs, for example, raised in high rises and on metal, and
Horrifying, horrifying.
horrifying, like beyond horrifying. And so that is not the way we, I think, can sustainably feed the world. We need to figure out better ways, cleaner ways, and more humane ways.
I totally agree with you. And I know that pastured animals can be an incredible CO2 sink. And this is my passion too, man, because we really have mucked things up and we got to fix it because we're starting to pay the price.
Yeah.
And all species are. But the other thing that's incredible is I saw an infographic on visualcapitalist.com. And evidently, in terms of biomass of animals, cows occupy the most biomass on the planet, which makes sense. But unfortunately, and then pigs and then other domesticated animals for consumption. But the problem is that's actually these conventionally raised animals are the number one source of greenhouse gases. It's not the cars, it's not the plastics, none of that helps, guarantee you, and they're doing other things as well. But we've got to figure out A, how to raise these animals more humanely and reduce the impact on the planet because this is really going to be crucial. And
Yeah.
sorry, I jumped right down in that hole with you, but yeah,
Oh,
it's
oh,
just
we
it's
could
a
take
huge.
that turn, and that's all this show could be for 3 hours. I love this topic, but I would just encourage you, if you don't know about regenerative, watch a really entertaining, fun documentary called "Kiss the Ground." It's years old, and it's still brilliant, and it's narrated by Woody Harrelson. But it'll teach you what we're talking about. And just Google White Oak Pastures. Their entire operation is zero waste. They treat every animal with respect and courtesy and love, and like they're their pets. And they also have a negative carbon. What is that called? I just lost it in my head. They have
Zero, a negative carbon impact or carbon footprint.
impact.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's the word.
So
Impact. Yeah.
and literally it's because of the way the animals are raised, it's sucking the carbon out of the air. Yeah, and that's truly amazing. So it can be done. It's just going to take some shenanigans to get it sorted out on a larger platform, so to speak. So
Yeah.
kiss the ground and then whiteoakfarms.com. But it's
WhiteOakPastures.com.
past, thank you, White Oak Pastures. But this is going to be so important going forward that yes, you've gotten the upper echelon, top tier God products, but we've got to get folks aware that this is what they need to look forward to.
Yeah.
It's
Now,
so
Dr.
right
Ruth,
on.
I just want to say this and this. If money were our motivator, what we would be doing is like our pork, for example, is about 4 times more expensive than typical pork. What I would do is I'd get in the cheap pork business and I'd get on that whole gravy train of treats like everybody does. And I'd create supplements that come from laboratories because it's you don't have to make them, you just buy them in 500-pound bags and you remix them and you package them. What we're here to do is really profoundly impact a dog's health. Those so-called 33% of dogs that the supplement will work really well on. But beyond that, I want to use all of our dogs and the health of our dogs to bring in these amazing farmers and even down to the beekeepers. We buy Manuka honey in and we use it in our new treat that's coming out from New Zealand because it's the purest, most pristine, the best quality Manuka honey we can find that's organic. And we want to support those beekeepers, and we want to support the farmers, and we want to support the ranchers. And we also think our customers are ready to pay the real, true cost of food. And that means all of the costs are in the product. They're not externalized. And that's a
You mean
whole
they're
other.
not in marketing?
Right, they're not externalized. So none of our farms are pushing the pollution costs on the population or the cancer that they're treating on the population from over-injected chemicals in the meats and all that other stuff. Just Google externalized costs. That's where all of these companies, they're not charging in the grocery store or in the Burger King or McDonald's. That's why you can have a 99-cent burger. You are paying for it other places and taxes and your own healthcare costs out of pocket. So I'm really proud of that. And I think like you, every day I get to meet heroes. I get to work with heroes that are on farms and that are working with bees and working with animals. And these people, that's who I want to surround myself with every day. And that's what I like about this company is we get to source from them and be customers of theirs.
That is just really awesome, my friend. And that's something too. I've got some supplements, and one of them is meant to be a multivitamin. And that's something I'm really looking at too, because oh gosh, I guess it was 2 years ago when Beijing was hosting one of the Olympics, they shut down supplement production for 6 months
Yeah.
so that they could get the air clear around the city. And it's one of those things. I think there's a place for synthetics for especially for people and pets that are super ill that have absorption issues. But
Yeah.
that's one of my projects for this year is to produce the cleanest supplement I can and go with as many food-based options in there as possible. And also to start really driving that home because if we don't start taking care of our planet, we are really going to be in trouble here shortly.
You
So
and I should
kudos to
talk.
you.
You and I should talk
Yeah.
because we're doing some stuff in Europe right now. Hopefully, we can come out with a product in Europe. And the other thing that occurs to me is I don't know how Montenegro will be with customs, but I can give you a vacuum packed Gussie's gut that you can add to your. I'll do this for you. That with there's no cheese in it, so we make it just the vegetable. And there's a lot of people, veterinarians, that I give this to as I just send them vacuum packed
Get
and
started.
you
Yeah.
yeah, and you could throw it in your smoothies or whatever if you want, but no, it's whole food based. Most people don't know most of our drugs and vitamins are and just you can just quick Google, you can figure this out. Most of them are made overseas and most of them are in China. Not everything in China is bad. Not everything in China is
No.
polluted and no, that's not the case. There are Chinese herbs that if you work with really careful suppliers and I
Good
mean there's some
companies.
yeah, amazing. And our green tea, because we cannot find organic decaffeinated green tea in America, can't find it. That is the only thing that we get in China, but we test it all the time for everything. And there's no way in heck that I'm letting any of that in if it's even remotely close. It doesn't even have to get near levels that are concerning. If there's anything in it, we're done with it. So it's out. So we take and we're really clear about this. Like everything we buy is from America, like all of our farms and everything. And when we create our UK product, it'll mostly be from the UK. But hey, we think green tea is super valuable. No one's doing it. No one wants to brew green tea every day and give it to their dog. No one does. If you do, great. You don't need it. But we put it in there and then we double ferment it and then we put it in there in the right quantities. And so now your dog has those polyphenols also and terpenes and all
Right
these other
on.
great things. Yeah.
That's super awesome stuff. Cool.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, right on. So that's really cool. But yeah, and I'll be back stateside I think the 25th of January. So it'll be soon. I think the customs will be a little slow, but it is what it is. There's a lot of other benefits here
That's why you live there.
for a few months out of the year. So next US and then Mexico. So it's all good stuff. And
Yes.
so I think
Rough life, Dr.
we
Ruth.
answered, oh, it's terrible. Yeah, I think we answered this question. Yeah, it has everything to do with the gut. So if the gut's not working correctly, then stuff's going to come out in the skin. And it's just tough. So that's where, that if you focus on fixing the gut first, using something, whether it's Gussie's gut to help fertilize the ground or plow the ground, so to speak, prepare it to be implanted with good guys, that's really where you have to start first for all of these problems. Would you
Yeah.
agree with that, Rob? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and
And
I love this person's last name, Chick. Miss I'm just gonna call her
yeah,
Miss Chick.
Miss
I think
Chick.
yeah, hey, Miss Chick. What I don't know, do you know Steve Marsden, the veterinarian Steve Marsden? So
Right
he
on.
yeah, for itching, I love Dr. Marsden's gold standard herbs.com. I think he formulated some stuff like it's Cesarex. You can
Yep.
look at those. I'm not saying that's what you should do, but he often bundles Gussies with his herbs because there's lots of evidence, NIH, National Institutes of Health in America, and then there's other studies that eating fermented foods, kimchi, cabbage, fermented cabbage, all that, actually may increase the absorption, and I think it does, but may increase the absorption of pharmaceuticals and supplements. So I think that's why he's
Fascinating.
doing it. Yeah. So I think that's why he's bundling it. And I would absolutely start looking at Chinese herbs. I'm a huge Chinese herb and a huge mushroom person. Not that those are the same. I'm just telling you, those are my go-tos because I think of Chinese herbs, they're whole foods. They're herbs and
They
they're
are.
always yeah, and his are powdered and they're non-adulterated and all that other stuff. So I think the world of him. I've had meals with him, and I think he is brilliant.
He is a really wise man, and his formulation abilities are off the hook for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, so there's that. We both love our friend Angela Arlino. She's got a fabulous combination product called Vitality, which is one of the
yeah,
very few extracts in a liquid form of a mushroom. So that's great. The other thing you could consider would be quercetin and stinging nettles. So both of those are awesome for reducing histamine levels and help drop the itch down. There's a product on my site called Histopause, and that's been extremely helpful for so many dogs. By combining that with a real food diet, I cannot tell you how many dogs we've gotten off of Apoquel. So that's been a big win.
yeah. Or
So
Cytopoint.
yeah, either one of them. I think that's the problem with the cytopoint. Eventually, the immune system kicks them off of it, which is good and bad because it's doing some other stuff too, which we're not aware of yet.
Yeah,
And
right.
then, yeah, and then Sil was asking about Celtic salt, and the tragedy is that every sea salt is contaminated with plastic, and I'm pretty sure that's why you went with Redmond's. Is that correct?
Yeah, because
Because it's
Redmond's,
mine.
I'm told, and yeah, it's tested like crazy. You could pull the analysis down from their website. Yeah, it's in the mountains. It used to be an ancient seabed before plastics became a problem. I'm unclear whether Celtic plastics and all. I don't think it's a huge problem, but I think it's enough of a problem. I think I drank today out of one of those to-go cups of coffee, and that they say is a ton of microplastics when the heat hits the cup. And every time I'm like, oh my gosh, why don't I have a mug with me? But I do it because you know what? I need some coffee, Dr. Ruth. I need it.
I
So,
hear you, my friend. I've been in that position.
so I say, okay, give me a credit card worth of plastic. If that's what I'll just deal with, my liver and kidneys will deal with it. But on a serious note, every day we're consuming those plastics. So unless you're fastidious about keeping those bigger things out of your life, I wouldn't worry about Celtic. But Redmond's is an incredible company. We buy it by the pallets, and it's the fine. We buy the same thing that you can buy, literally at the grocery store. We just buy it in huge 50-pound bags, I think it is.
Right on. And I like that salt a lot. I think it's got more trace minerals. and all sorts
Yep.
of stuff. But the plastic thing, I think, is a massive issue. And for instance, there was a study that I read about 2 weeks ago linking development of Parkinson's disease due to nanoplastics, they're calling it now, altering the structure of a protein and creating the changes in the brain structure. So I think that is another critical thing. If you are not filtering the water for yourself and for your pets with something that will take out not only micro nanoplastics, but also the herbicides, pesticides, cysts, all of that stuff, I think that's something else that you really need to invest in. It's whether it's a reverse osmosis or something simple like Berkey filters, which sit on your countertops, really spend some time researching that. And that is one of the most important investments you can make for your health and for your pet's health.
What also worries me about, we don't want to have to go down the whole water thing, but the one thing that I thought of in that list is in the water, the pharmaceuticals that people,
Yeah,
the numbers that of people that are on multiple serious pharmaceuticals is
huge.
nothing depressing. Yeah,
But there's
literally.
Prozac in the water to fix that, Rob.
Yeah. So,
Right?
and fluoride and all this other stuff. If you're in that municipality that they do that, some don't, but most do. There's every reason to filter our water. Hey guys, I'm so sorry, but this is it. This is don't just throw your hands up. You can throw your hands up like me because I come from an Italian family. That's what we do. But you take action. You do something. You say, okay, fine. That's the way the state of the water is. I'm going to filter it out. And so whole house is great. I read a statistic that I don't think like a 5-minute shower, you from the vapor and the absorption on your skin, you take in, I can't remember now the amount of chlorine because they have to keep,
Boatloads.
yeah. And so I was like, oh my gosh, thank God I have a whole house filter, and it's a good one. Is it the best one? I don't think so, but I need to relook at that. And I buy really good clean water that's tested in glass. I buy it in glass. It's
So
actually
you're not
three,
sucking up more plastic.
yeah, 3 gallon things. And that's what I drink. And that's just sadly, that's the world we're in. But those are those externalized costs. So every single one of us now to be healthy because of all the junk that's in these city water sources and all this other stuff and rain, the plastic comes back down in our environment in the rain. These are examples of externalized costs and we have to
Amen.
pay for it in order for us to keep us safe.
Right on. And that's the really tragic thing, right? Is the plastics are in the rain, the glyphosate is in the rain,
Yeah.
DDT from when you and I were both little weenie kids, that's still in the rain. It's just
Yeah.
we really, as my mother likes to say, we have done pissed in the grits. So we got to protect ourselves and more importantly, start voting with our dollars about what we want to see in the world.
Yeah.
So, Rob, this has been a ball. Very interesting segues we took here, but it was a lot of fun. And these are things that I'm really thinking about this year. So, again, for those of you that don't know Gussie's Gut, go check it out. There, you also have this beautiful microbiome magazine, which I put a link to there in the comments. But you're just doing really awesome stuff, and I appreciate what your driving motive is and that you're being true to yourself. So
Yeah.
thanks for educating me and everybody with us. And you guys have a wonderful day. So I'm gonna
Thank
cut
you.
us off
Thank you,
for
Dr.
now.
Ruth. Thank you, everybody
My
who
pleasure.
watched.